Hey there! Tonight we're stepping back to a time when the clash of iron decided empires, when a single weapon could turn the tide of history. You won't find this story in your textbooks. They glossed over the terror that gripped Roman legionaries when they faced the curved blades of Dacia. You are standing on a frozen hillside in the Carpathian Mountains, 101 AD. The wind cuts through your woolen tunic. Your fingers, calloused and scarred, grip the hilt of a weapon that makes Rome's finest soldiers hesitate. This isn't just a sword, it's a falx, a curved nightmare of Dacian steel that can split a Roman helmet like kindling. Tonight, we're going to walk through 35 chapters of forgotten brutality, strategic genius, and the mundane horror of ancient warfare. We'll explore why this peculiar blade haunted Roman dreams, how blacksmiths forged it in mountain villages, and what it felt like to wield one in battle. So, dim the lights, settle in, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Because for the next few hours, you're not in your comfortable bed. You're in ancient Dacia, and survival isn't guaranteed. You wake before dawn in a timber longhouse nestled against the Carpathian foothills. The air inside is thick with smoke from the central hearth, where embers still glow faintly orange. Your breath forms clouds in the cold. Around you, 12 other warriors sleep on wooden platforms, covered with sheepskins and rough-woven blankets. The smell of smoke, sweat, and damp wool is overwhelming, but familiar. Your body aches. Yesterday you spent 8 hours at the practice yard, drilling with the falx until your shoulders burned and your palms bled through the leather wrappings. The weapon leans against the wall near your sleeping platform, a curved blade nearly 4 feet long with a handle wrapped in cord. Even in the dim light, you can see the nicks along its inner edge where it struck the practice posts. Outside, a rooster crows. Someone near the hearth stirs, coughing. You know the routine. Before the sun fully rises, you'll be back at the yard. The chieftain demands it. Roman scouts have been spotted 3 valleys over, and everyone knows what that means. The legions are coming again, just like they did 5 years ago when they burned the villages along the Danube. You sit up slowly, feeling every bruise and strained muscle. Your hands are wrapped in linen strips, stained brown with old blood. The falx waits. The cold water from the wooden bucket shocks you awake. You splash your face and neck, gasping at the temperature. The water comes from a mountain stream, so cold it makes your teeth ache. Around the longhouse yard, other warriors are emerging, most silent and grim-faced. Everyone knows what today means. The village blacksmith's forge is already roaring. You can hear the rhythmic clang of hammer on iron echoing across the compound. He's been working through the night, repairing blades damaged in training, sharpening edges dulled by constant use. The smith never sleeps when Roman scouts are near. You walk to the communal fire pit, where an iron cauldron hangs over flames. Inside, a thin gruel of barley and wild onions bubbles. The smell is bland, but warm. You take a wooden bowl and dip it full, eating quickly while standing. The gruel is tasteless, but fills the hollow in your stomach. Around you, 16 other warriors do the same, barely speaking, their eyes distant. The chieftain emerges from his dwelling, a larger structure with carved posts. He's an old man, nearly 50, with a face like weathered oak and a body still thick with muscle. His beard is grey and braided. He carries his own falx, the blade dark with age and use. He surveys the gathered warriors without speaking, then nods toward the practice yard. The practice yard is a flat rectangle of trampled earth, surrounded by wooden posts driven deep into the ground. Each post is scarred and splintered from countless strikes. Some have deep grooves carved into them by falx blades swung with full force. The ground is muddy from yesterday's rain, and you can see boot prints and dropped weapons from previous training sessions. You retrieve your falx from the longhouse and carry it to the yard. The weapon is heavier than it looks, nearly 10 pounds of iron concentrated in that curved blade. The handle is simple wood, worn smooth by your grip, wrapped in cord that's frayed at the ends. The blade curves forward and down, like a reaping hook magnified to lethal size. The cutting edge is on the inside of the curve, honed to split bone. The chieftain walks among the warriors, inspecting each falx. When he reaches you, he takes your weapon and tests the edge with his thumb. A thin line of blood appears. He nods and returns it. The Romans wear iron on their heads and shoulders. For 3 hours you strike the practice post. Your arms burn with exhaustion. The falx grows heavier with each swing. The technique is specific. You must lift the blade high, almost over your head, then bring it down at an angle that lets the curve bite deep. If you swing straight down, the blade skids off. If you swing too flat, you lose all the power. Sweat runs into your eyes despite the cold. Your wrapped hands are slick inside the leather, and you can feel new blisters forming beneath the old calluses. Around you, other warriors grunt and curse as they drill the same motion over and over. The sound of iron biting wood fills the yard, a constant rhythm of strikes, splintering, pulling the blade free, striking again. The chieftain walks among you, correcting stances and angles. "Lower your hip," he tells one warrior. "Step into it," he tells another. When he reaches you, he watches 3 strikes without speaking. On the 4th, he stops your arm mid-swing. "You're muscling it. Let the weight fall. Guide, don't force." You try again. This time, you focus on letting gravity pull the blade down while you direct its path. The falx bites deeper into the post, and a larger chunk of wood tears free. The chieftain nods. "Better. 1,000 more times, and it will be instinct." 1,000 more times. Your shoulders already feel like they're tearing apart. By midday, the training pauses. Your hands are shaking so badly you can barely unwrap the linen strips. Beneath them, your palms are raw meat, old blisters torn open, new ones forming on top. The pain is sharp and constant. You dip your hands in a bucket of cold water mixed with vinegar and salt. The sting makes you gasp, but you know it prevents infection. The village women bring food to the training yard. Flatbread made from barley flour, dried mutton, and hard cheese. You eat mechanically, barely tasting it. Your body needs fuel. Around you, warriors eat in silence, their faces drawn with exhaustion. Some have blood seeping through their hand wrappings. One has a gash on his forearm where his falx slipped during a strike. The blacksmith arrives with a whetstone and oil. He moves among the warriors, examining each falx blade for nicks and damage. When he reaches you, he frowns at a small chip near the tip of your blade. "You hit bone on the post," he says. "It's not a question. This needs attention, but it will hold for now." The chieftain stands apart, eating nothing, his eyes on the distant tree line. Everyone knows what he's watching for. Roman scouts move in pairs, dressed to blend with the forest. If they've been spotted 3 valleys over, they're likely closer now. The question isn't if the legions are coming. The question is when. The afternoon training is worse. Your body is already exhausted, your hands torn and barely functional. But the chieftain shows no mercy. "Romans don't wait for you to rest," he growls. "They march 20 miles and fight the same day. They train while wounded. They fight while sick. If you want to survive them, you must be harder than they are." This session focuses on movement. It's not enough to strike hard. You must strike while advancing, while retreating, while another warrior attacks from your blind side. The chieftain pairs you with an older warrior named Decisive, a man who survived the last Roman incursion. Decisive has 3 fingers missing from his left hand and a scar that runs from his ear to his collarbone. Romans fight in formation, Decisive explains, his voice rough. Shield to shield, 3 ranks deep. They stab with short swords. They don't swing wildly, they're disciplined. He demonstrates with a wooden practice sword, showing the tight, efficient thrust of the gladius. Your falx has reach they don't. Use it. Strike over their shields. Strike down into their necks. But never commit fully. They have men behind to replace the ones you kill. You practice the approach, stepping in with the falx raised, bringing it down over an imaginary shield, then immediately stepping back out of gladius range. Step in, strike, step back. Step in, strike, step back. The rhythm is exhausting. Your legs burn as much as your arms. As the sun begins its descent toward the mountains, a horn sounds from the watchtower. 3 short blasts. Everyone freezes. That signal means riders approaching, but it's not an attack warning. 4 blasts would mean Romans. 3 blasts means messengers or traders. From the forest road, 2 horses emerge carrying Dacian riders. Their mounts are small and shaggy, built for mountain terrain. The riders wear better clothing than you. Tunics dyed blue with woad, leather armor across their chests, iron caps on their heads. These are warriors from the larger settlement in the next valley, men who serve the regional king directly. They dismount in the village center. The chieftain approaches, and they speak in low voices. You're too far away to hear words, but you can read the tension in their postures. One rider gestures toward the south. The other unwraps a cloth bundle and shows something to the chieftain. You glimpse metal, probably a Roman javelin point, or piece of armor taken from a scout. The conversation lasts perhaps 10 minutes. Then the riders remount and depart the way they came. The chieftain watches them go, his face unreadable. When he turns back to the assembled warriors, his expression is grim. "Tomorrow we march," he announces. The king summons all fighting men to the fortress at Sarmizegetusa. The Romans are 3 days from the Danube crossing, moving in force. A heavy silence falls over the practice yard. 3 days, maybe 4 if the weather turns bad. Then war. That night, the longhouse is crowded with activity instead of sleep. Warriors pack their belongings into leather bags and woven baskets. You own very little: a second tunic, a wool cloak, a water skin, a bone comb, and a small bronze amulet that belonged to your father. He died in the last war against Rome, cut down by javelin throwers before he ever reached the Roman line. You wrap the amulet in a scrap of cloth and tuck it into your belt pouch. Around you, men sharpen their falx blades on whetstones, the rhythmic scraping filling the air. Some check their shields. Most are small, round wooden boards covered with leather, painted with simple designs. A few warriors have chainmail shirts taken from dead Romans in previous battles. These men are envied and feared in equal measure. The village women move through the longhouse distributing food for the march: smoked meat, hard cheese, dried apples, and flat barley cakes wrapped in cloth. You take your share and pack it carefully. It's probably 5 days' worth if you're careful, maybe 3 if you're not. The fortress at Sarmizegetusa is 2 days' march through mountain passes. After that, who knows when you'll eat again? Your hands throb with pain. The salt and vinegar have dried the wounds, but every movement pulls at the torn skin. You re-wrap them carefully with fresh linen strips that a village woman brings. She's old, probably a grandmother, and she tuts disapprovingly at the damage. "You'll lose fingers if infection sets in," she mutters. "Keep the wrappings clean." Sleep comes in fragments. You drift off for an hour, then wake to the sound of someone vomiting outside. Nerves and bad meat, probably both. You drift off again and dream of curved blades falling like rain, of shields splintering, of blood on snow. You wake with your heart hammering, unsure where you are for a moment. The third time you wake, it's still dark, but the longhouse is stirring. Warriors are rising, pulling on their clothes, checking their weapons one final time. No one speaks much. There's a heaviness in the air that goes beyond the smoke from the hearth. Everyone knows that some of the men in this room won't return. You dress in your cleanest tunic. It's still stained and patched, but less filthy than the one you trained in. Over it, you pull on your wool cloak, fastening it with a simple bronze pin. You tie your waterskin to your belt, sling your food bag over your shoulder, and lift your falx. The weapon feels like an extension of your arm now, its weight familiar. Outside, false dawn is lightening the eastern sky. The village is assembling in the central yard. 17 warriors from your longhouse, 32 from the other dwellings, 12 from the shepherd camps in the high pastures. 61 men total, ranging in age from 16 to over 50. Most carry falx swords. A few have spears. 3 have bows. 1 has a Roman gladius taken from a corpse years ago. The chieftain stands at the front, his own falx strapped across his back, a round shield on his left arm. He doesn't give a speech. There's nothing left to say. The march begins as the sun breaks over the eastern peaks. The trail leads upward immediately, following a narrow path that winds through pine forest. The pace is steady but not rushed. The chieftain knows that arriving exhausted is worse than arriving an hour late. Your breath comes in clouds. The morning is cold enough that frost clings to the shaded portions of the trail. Your boots, really just leather wrapped around your feet and tied with cord, slip occasionally on wet stones. The falx grows heavy within the first hour. You shift it from hand to hand, but there's no comfortable way to carry a 4-foot curved blade through dense forest. Behind you, a younger warrior, barely 16, stumbles on a root and falls hard. He doesn't cry out, but you can see blood on his shin where he's scraped against a rock. He gets up quickly, shamefaced, and continues. No one helps him. Everyone has their own burden to carry. The trail climbs higher. Through gaps in the trees, you can see the valley below, where smoke rises from the village hearths. It looks peaceful from up here. It's hard to believe that in 3 days, Roman soldiers might be burning those same buildings, killing those same villagers. But you saw it before. You were 12 when the legions came last time. You hid in a grain pit while your father went to fight. He never came back. By mid-morning, you've climbed above the tree line. The path follows a ridge with steep drops on both sides. Wind tears at your cloak. Your hands are numb despite the linen wrappings. At midday, the column halts at a mountain spring. The water is so cold it hurts your teeth, but it's clean and tastes of stone. You drink deeply, refill your waterskin, and splash water on your face. The brief rest is welcome, but your legs have already stiffened. When the chieftain signals to continue, standing up is agony. The afternoon march is harder. The trail descends now, which should be easier, but going downhill puts different strain on your legs. Your knees begin to ache. The warrior ahead of you develops a pronounced limp, an old injury probably, aggravated by the terrain. He doesn't complain, just adjusts his pace. You eat while walking, a chunk of hard cheese and some dried meat. It's difficult to chew, even more difficult to swallow without water, but you need the strength. Around you, other warriors do the same. Some chew on wild herbs they've picked from beside the trail, thyme and something bitter that helps with pain. By late afternoon, you've descended into a new valley. This one is wider, with a river running through it. A wooden bridge crosses the water, really just logs lashed together with rope, but it's sturdy enough. On the far side, you can see another village, larger than yours. Smoke rises from dozens of hearths. As your column approaches, warriors emerge from the buildings. Perhaps 80 men, all armed, all preparing for the same march. The combined groups, nearly 150 warriors now, camp together that night beside the river. No shelters are erected. You sleep on the ground, wrapped in your cloak, using your food bag as a pillow. Your falx is within arm's reach. You wake to someone shaking your shoulder. It's still dark. Your body is stiff with cold and cramped muscles. Every part of you hurts. Your hands, your shoulders, your legs, your back. You sit up slowly, despite yourself. Around you, warriors are rising in similar states of discomfort. The river mist is thick and cold, clinging to everything. There's no hot food, just the same hard cheese and dried meat from yesterday. You chew mechanically, trying to wake up. The chieftain is already walking among the groups, organizing the march. With nearly 150 men, the column will be longer, more vulnerable to ambush if any Roman scouts are ranging this far north. The march begins in darkness. You walk by feel as much as sight, following the dim shape of the warrior ahead. The trail here is wider, following the river valley eastward. The sound of water rushing over stones is constant. Your boots squelch in mud. Your cloak is wet with mist. As dawn breaks, you see the landscape changing. The valley is narrowing, the mountains pressing in on both sides. Ahead, a stone fortress comes into view. Not Samosegatusa yet, just a waypoint, a watchtower and small garrison. Smoke rises from its hearth. As you approach, men emerge to watch the column pass. They don't join you. They're the last defense if the Romans come this way. One of them, an old warrior missing an eye, calls out, "King's at Samosegatusa with 3,000 already. Maybe 4,000 by tomorrow." 3,000. You've never seen that many people in one place. The thought is almost as frightening as the Romans. By afternoon of the second day, you crest a ridge and see it. Samosegatusa, the fortress sprawls across a mountain plateau, surrounded by massive stone walls that seem to grow from the rock itself. Towers rise at intervals, their timber tops visible above the stone. Inside the walls, you can see hundreds of buildings, stone houses, timber longhouses, workshops with smoke pouring from their chimneys. And everywhere, warriors. Thousands of them. The trail descends toward the fortress gates. As you get closer, the scale becomes overwhelming. The walls are 20 feet high, made of limestone blocks, fitted so precisely that you can't slip a knife blade between them. The gates are massive timbers bound with iron, standing open now but clearly capable of sealing the fortress against any attack. Your column merges with others converging on the fortress. Warriors from every valley, every mountain settlement. You see different styles of dress, different weapons. Some men wear bronze helmets shaped like animals. Others have scale armor made of bronze plates. A few carry long pikes instead of falx swords. The crowd is noisy, chaotic, smelling of sweat and smoke and animals. Inside the gates, the confusion intensifies. No one seems to know where to go. The chieftain argues with other leaders, trying to find a place for your group to camp. Finally, you're directed to an area near the eastern wall. A muddy field already crowded with warriors from other villages. You claim a section of ground that's less muddy than the rest and drop your pack. Your hands are bleeding again through the linen wraps. You're too tired to care. That night, you sit with your group around a small fire. Someone has traded for firewood. It's expensive here, with thousands of warriors needing fuel. The warmth is welcome, but the fire is too small to cook anything. You eat more dried meat and hard cheese. Your water tastes of leather from the skin. You're tired of the same food, but it's all there is. Around other fires, warriors tell stories. You hear laughter, arguments, singing. Some men drink. They've brought small clay jars of fermented barley beer or mead. You have nothing to trade for drink, so you sit sober and listen. One group is discussing the Romans, arguing about their tactics. They never break formation, one man insists. Cut down 10, and 10 more step forward. An older warrior with white in his beard shakes his head. They break, I've seen it. Kill their officers and they scatter like sheep. Arguments follow. No one really knows. The men who fought Romans and survived are relatively few, and their stories often contradict each other. Your chieftain sits apart, speaking with other leaders. You watch them point toward the fortress center, where the king's dwelling stands, a large stone building with guards at the entrance. Torches burn along the walls, making the night seem darker beyond their light. Somewhere in that building, the king is planning the defense, or the attack. You don't know which. You rewrap your hands by firelight. The blisters have turned into raw wounds that weep clear fluid. You tear strips from your spare tunic and wrap them carefully, wincing at every touch. Tomorrow, you'll need these hands to work, to fight if it comes to that. You're woken before dawn by horns, long, droning blasts that echo off the stone walls. The signal to assemble. All around you, thousands of warriors struggle to their feet, grabbing weapons, pulling on cloaks. The confusion is immense. No one seems to know where to go or what's happening. Eventually, leaders begin shouting orders, organizing men by region. Your group joins with others from the western valleys, perhaps 500 warriors total. You're directed toward the central plaza, a large open area paved with stone. By the time you arrive, it's already packed with warriors. Thousands upon thousands, all facing toward a raised platform of stone. On the platform stands the king. You've never seen him before. He's younger than you expected, perhaps 35, with long black hair and a beard braided with bronze rings. He wears a scale armor shirt that shines even in the weak dawn light, and a cloak of wolf fur. In his hand, he holds a falx, its blade polished to mirror brightness. The king doesn't shout. He speaks in a clear, carrying voice, and the crowd falls silent to hear. The Romans are at the Danube, he says. 4 legions, 20,000 men. They bring siege engines and cavalry. They intend to cross within 3 days and march north to burn our homes and take our people as slaves. A murmur runs through the crowd. 20,000. The number is staggering. There might be 5,000 warriors here, maybe 6. The odds are terrifying. But, the king continues, Romans die like any other men. And we have mountains. We have forests. We have weapons they fear. The king's speech continues. We will not meet them on open ground where their formations give advantage. We will fight in the passes where their numbers mean nothing. We will strike from high ground and vanish into forest. We will bleed them in 100 small battles until they flee back across the Danube. The strategy makes sense, but it also means constant movement, constant fighting, probably for months. It means sleeping in forests, eating whatever you can forage or hunt, being hunted in turn by Roman cavalry and scouts. Your leaders know the plan, the king says. You march today. May the gods give strength to your arms. He raises his falx high. 5,000 warriors roar in response, raising their own weapons. The sound is deafening, echoing off the stone walls until it seems to shake the mountains themselves. The assembly breaks up into chaos as regional groups try to find their leaders. Your chieftain is shouting and waving, gathering your men. We're assigned to the southern pass, he yells over the noise. 2 days' march. We're part of the first ambush. First ambush. That means you'll be among the first to face the Romans. You feel your stomach tighten. Around you, warriors are checking weapons, adjusting packs, speaking in low, tense voices. Some look eager, others terrified. Most, like you, look simply resigned. This is what you've trained for, what you've always known was coming. Within an hour, your group is marching out of Sarmizegetusa's gates, heading south toward the Danube passes. The march south is faster than the journey to Sarmizegetusa. Your legs are already accustomed to the distance, and the trail is wider, more traveled. Your group now numbers about 400. Warriors from several western valleys combined under 3 chieftains. They're organized into rough formations, though nothing like the Roman discipline you've heard described. You're positioned in the middle of the column, which means you eat dust from the men ahead, but at least you're protected if something attacks. Not that anyone expects Romans this far north yet. The scouts report they're still gathering at the Danube, preparing the river crossing. But scouts can be wrong, or dead. By midday, you're descending out of the high mountains into foothills. The air is warmer here, the vegetation different. Oak and ash instead of pine. The trail passes through farmland, small plots carved from forest, where peasants grow barley and keep pigs. The farmers watch your column pass with hollow eyes. They know what's coming. After you've gone by, they'll hide what food they can and flee into the hills. That night, you camp in an oak grove. The chieftains allow small fires for cooking, the first hot food you've had in days. Someone has a clay pot, and several warriors pool their dried meat and forage to make a thin stew. It's more water than meat, flavored with wild onions and some kind of bitter herb, but it's hot and fills your stomach. You eat 2 bowls and feel almost human again. On the second day of the march south, you begin to see signs of Roman presence. At a crossroads, someone has set up a Roman standard, a wooden pole with a red cloth tied to it. It's been knocked down and trampled, probably by Dacian scouts, but the message is clear. Romans have been this far north, claiming territory. The chieftains become more cautious. Scouts range ahead and on the flanks. The column moves more slowly, with warriors scanning the forest for movement. You're ordered to keep your falcons ready in your hand, instead of strapped across your back. The weight grows heavy quickly. In the afternoon, you reach the southern pass. It's a narrow valley between 2 steep ridges, heavily forested on both sides. The trail through it is barely wide enough for a wagon. At the northern end, where you enter, Dacian warriors have already prepared defences. Sharpened stakes hidden in the undergrowth, rope traps set to trip horses, piles of loose stones gathered on the ridges above for rolling down onto enemies below. Your group is assigned to the western ridge. You climb a narrow path through thick brush, emerging onto a rocky slope about 100 feet above the pass floor. From here, you have a clear view of the trail below. The position is good for ambush, but terrible for retreat. If things go wrong, you'll have to run uphill through forest with Romans chasing you. The chieftain positions warriors along the ridge in groups of 10. You're placed with 9 others, including Dacus, the scarred veteran from training.
You wait on the ridge for 2 days. It's the worst kind of waiting. Tense, vigilant, never able to fully relax. You take turns with the others, some watching the trail while others rest. But rest is difficult. The ground is hard and cold. It rains on the second night, soaking everything. You huddle under your cloak, shivering, unable to make a fire because smoke would give away your position. Food is rationed now. A small piece of cheese, a few bites of dried meat. Your stomach cramps with hunger, but there's nothing to be done. Foraging would mean leaving your position, which is forbidden. You drink from a small stream that trickles down the ridge. the water so cold it hurts. Dacus, the veteran, keeps watch more than the others. He never seems to sleep. When you ask him about it, he just shrugs. Sleep when you're dead, he mutters. His missing fingers are from a Roman sword, he tells you. The next scar is from a javelin that nearly killed him. He shows you other scars, his left leg, his right shoulder, his forearm. He's a map of Roman weapons. The falx evens things, he says quietly. Romans have better armor, better training, better everything. But the falx gets through their armor, gets over their shields, makes them afraid. He looks at you with those hard eyes. Fear is a weapon too. Make them afraid, and they make mistakes. On the morning of the third day, a scout scrambles up to your position. His eyes are wide. "They're coming," he gasps. "A cohort, maybe 500 men, an hour away." The wait is agonizing. An hour feels like a day. You check your falx blade for the 100th time. You adjust your grip. You wipe sweat from your palms despite the cold. Around you, the other warriors do the same. Dacus is calm, almost bored, but his knuckles are white on his weapon's handle. Then you hear them. Not voices, but the rhythmic sound of many feet marching in unison. The sound grows louder. Through the trees below, you see movement, flashes of red and silver. The Romans are coming. They enter the pass in formation, 4 abreast, shields locked, moving with mechanical precision. They wear segmented armor that shines even in the dim forest light. Their helmets are iron with cheek guards and neck protectors. They carry large rectangular shields painted red, and short swords hang at their sides. Every man looks identical, part of a machine. 500 of them. The column seems endless, filling the pass below. They're cautious, scanning the ridges, but they don't see you. Not yet. The chieftain waits. The signal to attack hasn't been given. You can hear your own heartbeat, feel your hands trembling on the falx. The Roman column keeps coming. When about half of them are fully in the pass, a horn sounds from the northern end. 2 sharp blasts. That's the signal. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the world explodes into violence. Warriors on both ridges rise from concealment, hurling rocks down onto the Romans below. The stones crash into shields and helmets. Men fall, bones breaking. The Roman formation wavers but doesn't break. You're moving before you think. Down the steep slope, falx raised high, screaming along with hundreds of others. The Romans below are in chaos from the rock barrage. Some lie unmoving. Others have broken formation, shields raised against stones still falling from above. But they're already recovering, officers shouting orders, lines reforming. You crash into the battle. A Roman soldier turns toward you, shield coming up, gladius stabbing forward. The short blade flashes toward your stomach. You twist aside, feeling it pass inches from your ribs. Your falx swings down over his shield, the curved blade biting into his shoulder where the armor plates meet. Blood sprays. The man screams and falls. You have no time to think about it. Another Roman is already there, shield bashing toward you, trying to knock you down. You skip backward, the shield missing by inches. Around you, the battle is a nightmare of noise and blood. Warriors and Romans lock together, stabbing, cutting, dying. Someone falls against you, nearly knocking you over. A Dacian warrior with his throat cut, blood pumping. Dacus appears beside you, his falx rising and falling like he's chopping wood. His face is calm, almost serene. He kills a Roman with a downward strike that splits the man's helmet and skull beneath. Doesn't even pause before moving to the next target. "Stay moving," he shouts at you. "Never stop." You strike at another Roman. Your falx blade hits his shield and glances off. He stabs at your leg. You barely jump aside. The blade cuts through your trouser leg, grazing your thigh. Pain flares, but no time to look at it.
The battle lasts perhaps 10 minutes, though it feels like hours. The Romans, despite the surprise and casualties, are forming defensive positions. Their officers have gotten them into tight circles, shields out, gladii ready. It's almost impossible to attack them when they're like that, without getting stabbed by 3 different blades. The chieftain's horn sounds, 3 short blasts, the signal to withdraw. Warriors begin pulling back, scrambling up the slopes toward the ridges. You turn to follow, but your leg nearly gives out. The wound is worse than you thought. Blood is running down your shin into your boot. Dacus grabs your arm. "Move," he snarls, half dragging you up the slope. Behind you, Romans are already organizing pursuit. A javelin flies past your head, so close you feel the wind. Another hits a warrior climbing ahead of you, punching through his back and emerging from his chest. He falls backward, tumbling down the slope. You scramble upward, hands and knees in the mud, falques dropped somewhere behind you. Can't think about that now. Just climb. Rocks and roots and branches tearing at your hands and face, your wounded leg screaming with every movement. Finally, you're over the ridge crest and into the thick forest beyond. Other warriors are there, some wounded worse than you. One man has his arm nearly severed at the elbow, bone visible, blood everywhere. He's remarkably calm, probably in shock. Another warrior is vomiting, whether from fear or exertion or both. The chieftain is counting heads. 43, he says. You started with 10 in your group. Only 7 are here now. 3 dead or captured below. You sit with your back against a tree while another warrior examines your wound. He's not a healer, just someone who's seen enough injuries to know what to do. He tears away the trouser leg to expose the cut. It's a clean slice, about 4 inches long on the outside of your thigh. Not too deep, but bleeding steadily. You're lucky, the warrior says. Missed the big vessels. But it needs closing. He has a leather pouch with a curved bronze needle and sinew thread. You know what's coming. You bite down on a stick as he pushes the needle through your skin and begins stitching. The pain is incredible, worse than the original cut. You taste blood from biting your tongue. 7 stitches later, it's done. He wraps the wound with strips of linen from someone's spare tunic, tying it tight to control bleeding. Don't run on it if you can help it, he advises. And keep it clean, or rot will set in. Rot kills more warriors than swords, everyone knows that. Around the forest clearing, other wounded are being tended. The man with the nearly severed arm is unconscious now, probably won't wake. Another warrior died while you were being stitched, his guts cut open by a gladius thrust. His friends cover his face with his cloak. The chieftain gathers everyone who can stand. We did well, he says, though his face is grim. Maybe 100 Romans dead or wounded. We lost 15. That's the kind of ratio we need. 15 dead. You knew some of them, trained with them, ate with them. Now their corpses in a pass the Romans will probably burn. The group moves that afternoon, despite the wounded. Can't stay. The Romans will send patrols into the forest, hunting for survivors. You fashion a crude crutch from a forked branch, using it to take weight off your wounded leg. Every step is painful, but you keep up. The alternative is being left behind, and that means capture or death. You march for 3 hours through thick forest, moving northeast away from the pass. The chieftain pushes hard, knowing that distance is survival. Behind you, you can hear shouting, Romans probably, searching the ridge where you attacked from. The sound fades as you move deeper into the forest. By evening, you reach a small Dacian settlement. Really just 3 timber houses and a barn
where shepherds shelter in winter. The inhabitants fled when they heard Romans were near, but they left food stored in an underground pit. Dried mutton, hard bread, and clay jars of soured milk. The chieftain allows everyone to eat their fill. It's the first real food in days. You sit by a fire, warming yourself, eating slowly. Your leg throbs with every heartbeat. The bandage is soaked through with blood and needs changing, but there's no clean cloth. Around the fire, warriors talk in low voices about the battle. Some are elated. They killed Romans, survived, proved themselves. Others are quiet, staring into the flames, seeing dead friends. Dacus sits beside you, chewing dried meat. His falx is across his knees, the blade still stained with Roman blood. You lost your weapon, he says. Not an accusation, just a statement. You nod miserably. A warrior without a falx is useless. Tomorrow we go back, Dacus says. The Romans will leave eventually. The dead won't mind us taking their blades.
2 days later, when scouts confirm the Romans have moved on from the pass, a small group returns to collect the dead and salvage equipment. You insist on going despite your wound. You need a weapon. Without one, you're worthless as a warrior. The pass is a charnel house. Bodies lie where they fell. Romans and Dacians mixed together, already bloating in the sun. The smell is overwhelming. Flies swarm in black clouds. You wrap cloth around your face, but it barely helps. You've smelled death before, but never like this. You move among the corpses, searching for a falx that's intact. Many are broken or damaged beyond use. Finally, you find one half buried under a dead Roman. You have to roll the body off, fighting nausea as rotting flesh comes away on your hands. The falx beneath is good. Blade nicked but solid, handle intact. You test its weight and balance. It's heavier than your old one, but serviceable. Other warriors are stripping usable items from the dead. Armor, boots, belts, even the Roman gladii, though few Dacians know how to use the short swords effectively. One warrior finds a Roman helmet that fits him. He puts it on until the chieftain makes him take it off. Romans shoot anyone wearing Roman gear, he explains, including us. Dacian bodies are gathered and piled for burning. You help carry them, your wounded legs screaming with every step. These were your companions, your friends. Now they're meat for flames. The Romans are left where they fell. Let their comrades come back for them if they want. Over the next weeks, you move constantly. The Roman advance continues, and your group, now down to 37 warriors after battle losses and men sent to other units, conducts hit-and-run attacks whenever opportunity presents. Ambushes on supply wagons, night raids on Roman camps, attacks on small patrols. It's brutal, exhausting work. You never sleep in the same place twice. Food is whatever you can forage, steal, or trade from terrified villagers. Your wound heals slowly, forming a thick rope of scar tissue down your thigh. You stop using the crutch after the first week, though you limp badly. The Romans adapt. They stop moving in small groups. They fortify every camp with ditches and stakes. They send cavalry sweeping through the forests, hunting for Dacian war parties. Twice, you barely avoid Roman patrols, hiding in thick brush while horsemen pass within yards. You become harder. The first Roman you killed haunts you for days. You see his face in your dreams, feel his blood spray on your skin. By the 5th or 6th kill, you don't remember their faces anymore. They're just enemies, obstacles, things to cut down with your falx before they cut you down with their gladii. Dacus teaches you tricks, how to move silently through forest, how to read tracks, where to strike a man in armor to kill him quickly. The neck, he says.
demonstrating on a practice dummy made from bundles of grass. Or the back of the knee to cripple him, or straight down through the collarbone. The falx blade is heavy. Let gravity do the work, guide it into the gaps. Winter comes early in the mountains. Snow begins falling in late October, transforming the landscape into white silence. The war doesn't stop. If anything, it intensifies. The Romans, hoping to finish their conquest before deep winter, push harder. The Dacians, fighting for survival, give no ground. Your group ambushes a Roman supply column during a snowstorm. 20 wagons with grain, wine, and weapons, guarded by perhaps 100 legionaries. Your force attacks from both sides of the trail, appearing from the snow like ghosts. The fighting is savage and brief. Half the Romans die in the first minutes. The rest form a defensive square, but they're cold and surprised, their movements slow. You kill 3 men in that fight. The first, you strike from behind, your falx splitting his helmet and the skull beneath. He drops without a sound. The second turns to face you, shield coming up, but he's too slow. Your blade comes over the top, hooking behind his neck, pulling him forward off balance. You stab down into his exposed back. The third actually wounds you. His gladius cuts across your forearm before you kill him, your falx taking him in the throat. After the battle, you wrap your arm wound with strips torn from a dead Roman's tunic. It's shallow, but it will scar. You're collecting scars like a trader collects coins. Your body is becoming a map of survival. The wagons are looted and burned. The grain is distributed among the warriors, precious food for the winter ahead. The wine is drunk immediately, and for one night, the war is forgotten as men celebrate survival.
Deep winter brings a kind of stalemate. The Romans retreat to fortified camps in the lowlands, where supply lines are shorter. The Dacians withdraw into the mountains, where the terrain favors defense. There are still skirmishes, still raids, but the large-scale movements stop. Everyone is trying to survive until spring. Your group winters in a cave complex high in the Carpathians. 60 warriors, your original group plus refugees from other units, packed into 3 interconnected caves. You sleep on pine boughs, covered with whatever furs and cloaks you have. The cold is brutal, penetrating, endless. Frostbite takes several warriors' toes and fingers. Food is scarce. You eat pine bark soup, boiled leather, snow mixed with dried blood from butchered animals. Once, you eat meat from a dead horse, the flesh almost rotten, but still protein. You learn to ignore your stomach, to exist on almost nothing. Dacus becomes sick in late January, a fever that makes him delirious, sweating despite the cold. For 3 days, you think he'll die. You feed him snow to keep him hydrated, wrap him in every spare cloth you can find. On the 4th day, the fever breaks. He wakes weak but coherent, looking at you with surprise. "You stayed," he says. You shrug. "You taught me to stay alive." Seemed fair to return the favor. By February, the cave population has dropped to 53. 5 warriors dead from disease, 1 from an infected wound, 1 who simply walked out into a snowstorm and never returned. The survivors are gaunt, hollow-eyed, pushed to the edge of what humans can endure. Spring arrives slowly, grudgingly. The snow begins to melt in March, revealing a landscape of mud and dead things. Your group emerges from the caves looking more like corpses than warriors. But you're alive. 53 men who survived winter in the mountains while living on almost nothing. News comes from scouts. The Romans are preparing for a major offensive. They've spent the winter building siege equipment and gathering supplies. The target is Sarmizegetusa itself, the capital, the heart of Dacian resistance. If it falls, the war is over. The chieftain gathers everyone who can stand.
The king summons all warriors to defend the capital, he announces. We march in 3 days. Eat, rest, prepare your weapons. 3 days to recover from a winter that nearly killed you. It's not enough, but it's what you have. You spend those days eating whatever food the lowland villages can spare. Mostly thin barley gruel and stringy goat meat, but it's more than you've had in months. Your body begins to recover. Your face fills out slightly. Your strength returns in small increments. By the 3rd day, you can hold your falx for an hour without your arms shaking. The march to Samizegatusa takes 5 days. Your group, now barely 40 strong after a few more warriors succumb to winter illnesses, joins with others converging on the capital. The mood is grim. Everyone knows this is the final battle. Win or lose, the war ends here. When you crest the last ridge and see Samizegatusa spread below, you also see the Romans. Thousands of them. Maybe 15,000, camped in a fort. Inside Samizegatusa, chaos reigns. Perhaps 4,000 Dacian warriors have gathered, along with all the civilians who fled the lowlands. The fortress, designed for maybe 10,000 people, now holds twice that. Food is already running low. Water is rationed. Disease spreads quickly in the crowded conditions. You're assigned to the eastern wall, where the Romans are expected to focus their attack. The wall is 20 feet of limestone blocks, topped with timber fighting platforms. You climb the ladder to your position and look out at the Roman camp. From here, you can see their preparations, siege towers being assembled, rams being constructed, ladders and ropes organized in neat piles. Dacus stands beside you, looking older than his years. I was here last time, he says quietly. 15 years ago. The Romans came then too. We held for 3 months before they gave up and left. He points at the siege equipment. They didn't have those things last time. Now they do. The first Roman assault comes at dawn 3 days later. Horns sound across the valley, and 15,000 Romans begin their advance. They come in waves, first the archers, launching clouds of arrows at the walls. You crouch behind the parapet as iron-tipped shafts rain down. Most hit stone and bounce off, but some find flesh. Warriors scream and fall. Then the towers roll forward, pushed by hundreds of men. They're massive wooden structures, 3 stories tall, plated with wet hides to resist fire arrows. At their tops, platforms hold Roman soldiers, ready to leap onto the walls. Your section of wall braces for impact as a tower approaches. This is it, the final defense. The siege tower crashes against the wall. The impact shakes the entire fighting platform, nearly knocking you off your feet. Before you can recover, the tower's assault ramp drops, slamming down onto the wall. Romans pour across, legionaries with shields locked, stabbing with gladii, pushing forward in tight formation. The fighting is immediate and brutal. Your falx swings high, coming down over Roman shields into necks and shoulders. The blade bites through armor, through flesh, through bone. Men scream and fall, but more keep coming. There's no room to maneuver, just desperate stabbing and hacking in a space barely 10 feet wide. A gladius stabs at your stomach. You twist aside, feeling the blade scrape across your Roman chestplate. Your falx comes down, splitting the attacker's helmet. He falls, and you step on his body to strike at the next Roman. Your boots slip on blood. The platform is slick with it. Beside you, Dacus fights like a madman, his falx a blur of motion. But there are too many Romans. They keep coming, climbing over their own dead, pushing forward by sheer numbers. The Dacian line starts to buckle. Warriors are being forced back, giving ground, retreating down the fighting platform toward the interior of the fortress. Then a horn sounds, high and clear. From the fortress center, reinforcements are coming. Warriors in better armor, carrying larger shields, probably the king's personal guard. They hit the Roman flank, and suddenly the pressure eases. The Romans on the wall are caught between two Dacian forces. They break, retreating back across the assault ramp into their tower. The assault continues all day. Wave after wave of Romans attack the walls, and wave after wave are thrown back. But each repulse costs lives. By sunset, perhaps 1,000 Dacian warriors are dead or too wounded to fight. The Romans have lost even more, maybe 3,000, but they have the numbers to absorb such losses. That night, you sit on the wall, too exhausted to descend. Your falx lies across your knees, blade notched and dulled from striking armor and bone. Your arms feel like lead. You can barely lift them. Around you, warriors tend wounds, drink water, eat scraps of food. No one speaks much. Everyone is thinking the same thing. Tomorrow will be worse. Decus sits beside you, wrapping a gash on his forearm. He's taken at least 5 wounds today, nothing fatal, but he's losing blood steadily. They'll breach tomorrow, he says matter-of-factly. Or the day after. There's too many of them. You nod. It's obvious to everyone. The question isn't if the fortress falls, but when. Why do we keep fighting, you ask? Not a complaint, just honest curiosity. The war is lost. Everyone knows it. Why not surrender, save what lives remain? Decus looks at you with those hard eyes. Because they'll enslave everyone who surrenders. Men, women, children, shipped to Rome to die in mines or arenas or worse. At least this way we die free. And we make them pay for every foot of ground. Make them remember what it cost to conquer Dacia. You understand. This isn't about victory anymore. It's about making the price so high that Rome thinks twice before attacking someone else. The Romans breach the wall on the 4th day of the siege. They concentrate 5 siege towers on a single section of the eastern wall, overwhelming the defenders by sheer numbers. Warriors fight until they're cut down, then Romans pour through the gap into the fortress interior. You're not at the breach. You're 200 yards away when it happens. You hear the shouts, the horns signaling disaster, and you run toward the fighting. Your wounded leg burns with every step, but you ignore it. Around you, hundreds of warriors are converging on the breach, trying to contain it before the Romans establish a foothold. The fighting inside the fortress is even more brutal than on the walls. No formation, no tactics, just desperate melee in narrow streets between buildings. Your falx rises and falls until your arms are numb. You kill without thinking, without seeing faces, driven by pure survival instinct. A Roman legionary strikes you in the side with his shield, cracking ribs. You go down hard, gasping, struggling to breathe. A Roman steps over you, gladius raised to finish you. Then Decus is there, his falx taking the man in the neck. Blood sprays across your face. Decus hauls you upright. "Move!" he shouts over the chaos. You stumble forward, fighting to breathe, following him through the nightmare. By evening, the Dacians have managed to seal the breach with barricades of timber and stone, but the Romans control 3 city blocks inside the fortress. Perhaps 500 Romans are trapped inside Dacian territory, and perhaps 1,000 Dacians are trapped behind Roman lines. Neither side can disengage without massive losses. The siege grinds on for 2 more weeks. The Romans consolidate their foothold inside the fortress and push forward building by building. The Dacians contest every street, every house, but there's no stopping the advance. Food runs out completely. Water is controlled by Romans now. They've taken the main well. Disease spreads through the crowded defenders. You're too injured to fight effectively. Broken ribs, broken fingers, a dozen other wounds. You can barely walk. You help where you can, carrying water, tending wounded, but you're useless as a warrior. You watch younger, healthier men go out to fight and not return. Decus dies on the 18th day of the siege. A Roman javelin takes him in the chest during a street fight. He dies quickly, probably didn't feel much pain. You're there when it happens, watching from a doorway because your injuries won't let you join the fighting. You see him fall, see the light leave his eyes. Later, you drag his body to the funeral pyre with the 100 others who died that day. You keep his falx. Your weapon is too damaged to use, and his is better anyway. It feels right, carrying the blade of the man who taught you to survive. On the 20th day, the Dacian king dies. A Roman arrow finds him while he's directing defense from the walls. Without his leadership, resistance crumbles. By evening, the Romans control 3/4 of the fortress. The remaining Dacians, maybe 1,000 warriors and 5,000 civilians, are trapped in the western quarter. That night, the chieftain finds you. "We're evacuating," he says. The drainage tunnel leads down through the rock beneath the fortress, emerging in the forest half a mile away. You move through it in darkness, part of a column of perhaps 300 survivors, mostly wounded warriors and women with children. The tunnel is narrow, barely wide enough for one person, slick with water and waste. You crawl on hands and knees, your broken ribs screaming with every movement, Decus's falx strapped to your back. It takes hours to navigate the tunnel. People ahead of you panic in the darkness, blocking the way until they're calmed or dragged forward. You focus on breathing, on moving one hand forward, then the other, then your knees. Don't think about the weight of rock above. Don't think about the Romans behind. Just move. Finally, fresh air. The tunnel exit is hidden behind thorny brush in a ravine. You emerge into pre-dawn darkness, gasping, trembling, barely able to stand. Around you, survivors collapse onto the ground, weeping or laughing or simply staring at nothing. Behind you, towards Samizegatusa, you hear victory horns. The Romans have taken the fortress. The war is over. Dacia has fallen. The chieftain gathers everyone who can stand, maybe 200 people. "We go north," he says, "into the deep mountains where Romans won't follow. We'll survive. We'll remember. Someday, we'll tell our children what it cost them to take our homeland." You look back one final time toward the fortress. Smoke rises in black columns. You think about everyone who died there, your friends, your comrades, Decus. You think about the thousands of Romans who died too, struck down by Dacian falx blades in mountain passes and forest ambushes and on fortress walls. Then you turn north and begin walking. You're alive. Against all odds, you survived. And you carry with you the memories of a war that Rome won, but will never forget they fought. The sun rises over the mountains, painting snow-covered peaks gold and red. You lean on Decus's falx and walk into exile, into survival, into the next chapter of a life bought with blood and maintained by sheer, stubborn refusal to die. Behind you, the smoke keeps rising, and so you survived. Against legions and winter, against wounds and hunger, you lived when thousands didn't. The falx you carry, Decus's blade now, is a reminder. Rome conquered Dacia, yes, but they paid for every mountain pass, every valley, every foot of stone wall. They learned to fear the curved blade that struck over their shields. They learned that some people refuse to yield, even when defeat is certain. Tonight, as you rest in comfort, far removed from those ancient mountains, be grateful you'll never know that kind of cold, that hunger, that desperate fight for survival. Let these memories of forgotten warriors fade as you drift towards sleep, safe and warm, in a world where curved swords are museum pieces and old wars are stories for bedtime. Sleep well.